And good evening, East Alabama and West Georgia. It is 8:01 p.m. Central, 9:01 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, January 15th, 2026. Dr. Don's in here with you as we are going to talk to you about the possibility of that S word across East Alabama and West Georgia as we get into your weekend. Before I start talking about potential details, let me start by saying we are talking about a weather system that has not even developed yet. So it's almost impossible for me to tell you some 50 hours in advance exactly what's going to happen and exactly where it is going to happen. That is absolutely impossible for anybody to do, including myself. You've been seeing all kinds of stuff out there on social media for the last 3 or 4 days talking about this major snowstorm that may or may not impact the southeastern United States. And as we get a little bit closer, models are beginning to just now get into that short-range area where we can start getting some good resolution on what the possibilities are going to be across the southeastern United States. And I got to tell you that this does not appear to be a major snow event at this point. Now, like I said, we're still 50 hours away, so there are things that could happen that could change that once we start to get the low-pressure system actually forming along the Gulf Coast or out in the Gulf of America, depending on where it forms. Then we can start really honing in the weather forecast and deciding exactly where the snow is going to fall, if it falls at all, and how much snow we may be talking about. Now, lots of folks are giving a good guess at what they think is going to happen and where they think it will happen. And I got to be honest with you, right now all we can do is take the more trusted models, and that's what we're kind of going with. But there are a couple of different variations of what could happen that could change things significantly for different parts of the southeastern United States. So it's still a very, very low confidence weather forecast at this point, if you can even call it a forecast, to be quite honest with you. But I'll try to go through this the best I can and tell you what we know right now and what some of the possibilities are. Again, what I'm about to show you and talk about is not a forecast. It is simply possibilities. So keep that in mind. So what you're looking at right now is the GFS model, and this is one of the more trusted models that we look at when we start to see the possibility of winter precipitation across the southeastern United States. And this is at midnight on Saturday night. Now, let me stop right there and tell you this. We have 2 precipitation makers coming in our general direction. One will be tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night, being Friday afternoon and Friday night. There we will be warm enough. No winter weather possibilities for your Friday afternoon or Friday night. Right now, we got about a 70% chance of rain late tomorrow into the early part of tomorrow night. Now, there will be a reinforcing shot of cold air that comes in behind that rain tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. And I don't think we're looking at a significant amount of rain. We're probably in the quarter to half inch range on this system that's coming in on Friday. So that moisture is completely gone by midnight Friday night, and we get that reinforcing cold air in here. You get up Saturday morning, it's going to be cold again. And then we should have sunshine throughout most of the day on Saturday. And as that front that brings us the rain on Friday night gets down into the Gulf of Mexico, it is expected, and I say expected, to kick up a low-pressure system in the Gulf of America. There's still low to medium confidence that that's even going to happen. But let's assume that it does. Then the next question is going to be, where does it form and where does it track? That's going to make all the difference in the world as to who may get snow, who does not get snow. And depending on how strong that low pressure system is, how big it is, How much snow are we talking about? Of course, places that I think have the best chance of getting snow Saturday night into Sunday morning, it doesn't take but a ½ inch to 2 inches to cause some really serious problems. And we'll dive more into that in just a few moments. The only thing I think we can tell you right now with any great confidence is the rain system tomorrow night and the timing of tomorrow night's system and Saturday night system. I think any moisture we may see across Alabama and Georgia will not arrive until after midnight Saturday night and probably will continue into the early hours of Sunday morning. And there will certainly be enough cold air in place. You have to have two things to get snow in the South. Typically, you need cold air already in place. That will happen. That high confidence with that one. The second thing you got to have is moisture. And to get a good snow in Alabama and Georgia, we need a low-pressure system in the Gulf of America. We think that may happen. Confidence there is low to medium on the system itself. The exact placement of that system and where it tracks after it forms and how strong it gets will be the deciding factor on who gets snow and how much they get. And that could range anywhere from just the Northwest Florida panhandle all the way up into the I-85 corridor and potentially even all the way up to the I-85 corridor, depending on where it forms, how big it gets, and where it tracks once it does form. So we're looking at the GFS. This is at midnight on Saturday night, and this is one of the more trusted models. And you can see right there, we're not talking about a lot of snow. We do see on this particular model that we may have snow from the southern Atlanta suburbs all the way back over into West Georgia and then into East Alabama, right along that I-85 corridor, maybe along the I-85 corridor and to the north about 20 to 30 miles. So we're talking about places like Newnan. We're talking about Meriwether County, maybe over into Heard County, Troup, maybe southern Randolph, Chambers, and then on over into Tallapoosa, down into Elmore, Coosa, Chilton County, down into Autauga County, Montgomery County, and then maybe all the way back over into Dallas County. This is at midnight on Saturday night. Now, this is very light snow. We may be looking at a dusting here, if this particular model were to verify. That's at midnight. Now, as we move ahead to about 3 a.m. Sunday morning, the entire moisture axis moves a little bit further to the south and to the east, but you can see those blue colors get darker. So that means the snow rate is increasing and becoming more intense, but maybe a little bit further south, maybe right along that I-85 corridor and 20, 30, maybe 40 miles to the south of the I-85 corridor. So now we're getting down into the Mobile, Baldwin County area, back up toward Andalusia, maybe up into the northern Coffee County areas there around Elba, up to around Troy, and then over to just north of Eufaula. We're talking about places like Lee County, Auburn, Opelika, down into Columbus, maybe, and then over into Harris County and down along the southern reaches there of the I-85 corridor on over into Georgia. Maybe some light snow on the east side of Atlanta back up to around Augusta, and then up into the North Georgia mountains, maybe a flurry or two if this model verifies. This is only one model, but it is the more trusted model that we typically watch when we get into these types of weather events. So, again, that's at 3 a.m. Sunday morning, and then here we go with 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. The dark blue expands even further, but you'll notice the axis of the heaviest snowfall continues to move to the south and southeast. Here, we would be getting snow at Pensacola. Are we going to see 2 snowstorms in northwest Florida in a row? It's beginning to look possible. Maybe all the way over to around Panama City, back up toward Marianna, Florida, in southeast Alabama, Dothan, back over toward Donaldsonville, Georgia, maybe over toward Albany, and then up to around Macon, continuing all the way up there to around Augusta, and then into South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. Maybe looking at a decent snow here. And again, that's at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. I'm sorry, that's at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. Now we'll go to 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. And again, the snow axis continues to shift to the southeast and continues to deepen there in South Georgia, all the way up through middle South Carolina and into middle North Carolina. Now, that's as far out as we're going to go with the GFS model loop, but I'll tell you that continues moving to the southeast, and eventually we're talking snow in places like Brunswick, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, Tybee Island, Hilton Head, all the way up. Charleston maybe gets some snow, Myrtle Beach, and then all the way to the Outer Banks, North Carolina may get some snow on Sunday morning if this particular model does verify. Now, we do have a loop of this, and we start this at about 11 p.m. on Saturday night. Midnight, there's 6 a.m., 9 a.m., and look at that, all the way out to the Atlantic by the time we get to mid-morning on Sunday, if the GFS turns out to be the correct solution for this winter weather event. Now, odds are very good that this won't be exactly what happens if anything happens at all. Do not lose sight of the fact we may not have a low pressure develop at all out in the Gulf of America. If that happens, nobody gets any snow on Saturday night. Then we could have some surprises. This thing could form in a different place than the models think that they may. This could also end up being more of a northern storm. So you people up there along the I-20 corridor and then up into North Georgia, don't let your guard down because this whole thing could change depending on this. This is the big deal. This is what's going to make the difference on what we get, if anything at all, and where we get it. So we have two scenarios that are possible right now. So the first scenario is, and it's the most likely one, that the low pressure system will form just offshore in the northern Gulf of America, maybe just south of Pensacola. And then that thing tracks off to the east and then starts as it turns across North Florida, maybe emerging in the Atlantic somewhere around Jacksonville. It starts that northeastern turn. So that kind of takes that rain shield, the precipitation shield, and pushes it up into central Alabama and then curves it back to the northeast as it comes through South Georgia. That scenario would probably give us some flurries up here in North Georgia and even all the way up to the I-20 corridor in Alabama. I think we're looking at least at some flurries if scenario one is the final solution to this. If scenario two develops, and it's the least likely scenario at the moment, then that low pressure system would be another maybe 100 miles further south out in the north central Gulf of America. Now that's going to pull that moisture shield further to the south. So in that scenario, our better chances for any frozen precipitation would be right along that northwest Florida, maybe up into South Alabama, a tier or two of counties, and then across South Georgia, and then up across South Carolina and North Carolina. So where that low pressure system forms on Saturday evening is going to make all the difference in the world as to how far north the moisture goes and how much we're going to get. Now, if this low ends up being deeper than the models think it's going to be, then that would increase the snow amounts. If it is, weaker than the models think it's going to be, then that's going to subside the moisture amount as well. And of course, that all equals how much snow are we going to get. And again, we just simply can't tell you with any great certainty right now. So what we look at this point are probabilities. The probabilistic outlook is the best thing to look at this point. What you're looking at there on the screen is the probability of snowfall greater than 1/4 of an inch. And so you can look there and you'll see Alabama and you'll see the western part of Georgia as well. And most of folks that are listening to me right now or watching are going to be up there in East Alabama and West Georgia. So we'll start in Alabama, and we'll tell you folks in Talladega County, you got about a 21% chance of getting 1/4 of an inch of snow or more. You folks in Clay County, you got about a 23% chance. Randolph County, about a 23% chance. We get down into Chambers, most of Chambers, about a 20%, 21% chance. And then we'll really kind of stay in the low 20s all the way back into Montgomery. Then you see those red colors there, starting in about the Auburn-Opelika area. And your chances of seeing some accumulating snow of at least 1/4 of an inch, a little bit better at about 29%. Look at that 34% over there toward Valley, Alabama. 35% up there at LaGrange. And then as we go back up to the northeast, up around, we'll get up there around Noonan, it's about 12%. And then the further south and east you go, the better the chances are that you will see at least 1/4 of an inch of snow. You get down there around Albany, Georgia, it's at 40%. So those percentages are pretty good down there. If you go north, you go up there north of the I-20 corridor, back up into, and it's not depicted on this map, but up here in northeast Georgia, a lot of folks watch simply because that's where I live and work. They watch Dr. Don's weather, but up in the northeast Georgia mountains right now, we're at about a 15 to 20% chance of seeing at least 1/4 of an inch of snow or more. Then back toward Birmingham, about a 21%. Atlanta, real anxious folks there in Atlanta watching all of this because they don't want to get caught like they did back in 2014, the last time we had a big snow/ice event, and a lot of folks got stranded in Atlanta, so they're paying a lot of attention to this. But right now, only about a 20 to 25% chance that we would see 1/4 of an inch of snow or greater in the Atlanta metro area. So you can see, based off of what we know right this moment, odds are not good that we're going to see a major snowstorm here. But again, I preface that with this caveat. We're still some 50 hours away from the low-pressure system developing and giving us a really good look at which way it's going to go. Now, as we get into the daylight hours tomorrow, we start to get in that window where we start feeding real atmospheric data into the computers, and we start getting a much better look at the computer ensembles, which kind of give us a much better look at what the specifics may be as this thing starts to unfold on Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. So I think the forecast confidence, you'll see that begin to increase tomorrow. I know that we had a weather webinar this afternoon. I was part of that. It was presented by the National Weather Service out of Peachtree City, and their concern was there's really two different solutions here, and either one of them had equal odds of panning out. A more northern track, which would give better snow chances across East Alabama and West Georgia, and even up into Atlanta and Northeast Georgia, or a southern track, which would limit the moisture across Central Alabama, East Alabama, West Georgia, and it would increase the chances of seeing frozen precipitation across Southern Alabama, Southern Georgia. We're not going to have both of those. It's going to be either or. And we just simply won't have a really good forecast until we get into probably early afternoon tomorrow before this thing really starts to give us a good look at what may happen. Now, I want to show you one more slide. This is from the National Weather Service out of Peachtree City. And these are the areas of concern. This was as of about 1:30 this afternoon. Things have changed a little bit since then, but not much. So I just told you there are two possibilities here, that northern track or the southern track. So the secondary area of concern is that area you see in orange there from about Carrollton over to around Gainesville and then up to the North Carolina state line. right now it doesn't look like there's a real good chance we would see any measurable precipitation up there in northwest Georgia. You folks up there in Dalton and on up into Chattanooga, you could see some flurries, but this doesn't look like a big deal for you. Then that secondary area of concern in orange. The primary concern area is in red. And for you folks in Alabama, if you take that red area and you draw it back to the southwest, that's going to get central southern Randolph. It's going to get all of Chambers. It'll get Lee. And then it will also get just about everybody in our coverage area, maybe with the exception of Talladega County back over to the southwest. And then the increasing concern at the time this graphic was produced this afternoon is going to be that area down there in South Georgia and extreme southeast Alabama. So we can't really tell you for sure what's going to happen. I know snow lovers are holding on to every ounce of hope that we could have a decent snow across Alabama and Georgia on Saturday. Here's the deal, folks, and this is the way it works. There are going to be those who are surprised and happy, and there are going to be those who are surprised and sad. Some folks who want snow is not going to get it, and some folks who think they're not going to get snow will get it. There's always a surprise in every one of these winter weather events that we have to deal with here in the Southeast. It's just the way it is. Every single system gives us something we wasn't really expecting, and I'm sure this one will not be any different. So that's kind of where we are right now. We don't expect this to be a major deal, but hey, look, if you're along that I-85 corridor or anywhere south of there, and you pick up 3/4 of an inch to 2 inches of snow, that is a big deal to you in that part of Alabama and Georgia. So when I say big deal, we're not looking at a 4, 5, 6, 12-inch snowfall here for anybody across the Southeast based off of the data we have at this moment. At best, this is going to be a dusting to about 2 inches, maybe, along and south of that I-85 corridor. That's the way it looks right now. You get up tomorrow morning, that could be completely changed. We could be shoving all of that further to the north, or we could be pulling it further to the south, or we could say, hey, this isn't going to happen at all. All of those are possibilities at the moment. So let me go back over here and look in the chat room, see if I can answer any questions right quick, and then the plan moving forward. Most likely, we will do a live primetime forecast for you in the morning, and then we'll update you throughout the day with live updates. If we think this is becoming a significant event, we'll keep you updated with live updates for sure. Let's see if there's anything in here. It's definitely going to be cold. No question about that. Reinforcing air coming in tomorrow night, going to keep us cold through the weekend. If we were to get some snow cover in that I-85 corridor or further south, then temperatures, of course, will struggle to get much above 32 where we have significant snow accumulation. But if we don't have significant snow accumulation, then, by the time Monday gets here, we'll warm up in the afternoons up into the 40s. So still going to be cold at night. But at least if we don't have a snowpack, we won't hold on to those frigid temperatures all day long Sunday or Monday. Everybody in North Georgia needs to start flushing ice cubes. I hear you. Yeah, right now, based off of the absolute latest information that we have seen, I really think middle Georgia, it's that one right there. I think that those areas in red, maybe not as far north as Atlanta, maybe from about maybe the I-20 corridor over to Atlanta, and then kind of carve that out back over toward Griffin, and then back into Heard County south, I think is where the bullseye is at the moment. Again, later model runs may push that further north. It may pull that further south, or it may take it off the table altogether. All of those are possibilities. Well, there's a very real possibility that Valley, Alabama may be an area that gets the most amount across East Alabama and West Georgia from about Valley south. You're right there along that I-85 corridor. So we'll be watching that real close. Yeah, Troy, Alabama. Imagine that. Normally, if we mention Troy, it's because you got a tornado barreling down on you down there. But yeah, absolutely. Troy has that. And let's see if I can go back to probably about 3 a.m. Look at that. At 3 a.m. on Sunday morning, that's a pretty decent clip of snow coming right across southeast Alabama, and Troy's right in the middle of that. Now, understand, this isn't going to last very long. So that's 3 a.m. Let me go back to midnight, okay. All right, so there's 3 a.m., and we'll go to 6 a.m. So that heavier snow that's coming across Troy at 3 a.m. probably won't last but about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and then it's out of there. And the snow rate, we can't say right now what the snow rate's going to be per hour, but I think it's conceivable that Troy could be looking at a half to 1 inch of snow. You got to understand, Troy, your ground is going to be relatively warm, and you may actually start off as rain and then transition over to snow. So, I mean, you could get a couple of 2 or 3 inches of snow in Troy, but the problem is it's not going to all accumulate. And very little may end up accumulating. It just depends on where the temperatures are before it snows and how fast it drops below 32 as the snow starts. If you hang out, if you get up into the mid to upper 40s Saturday afternoon, and then you get cloudy, that kind of acts like a blanket, and then you drop down to around 32, 31 degrees around midnight or 2 a.m. Sunday morning, and then the precipitation starts as rain, slowly transitions over to snow. It could be snowing really hard there for an hour, hour and a half, but the problem is the ground is not frozen. So you could get some accumulation if the snow rates are high enough, but as soon as that precipitation high snow rate stops, then that snow layer starts to melt. And so you maybe could go from a couple of inches back down to just a dusting real quick as soon as that snow stops. That's all a possibility, not a forecast at the moment, but you specifically asked about Troy, so I wanted to throw that out there at you, Wells. Well, Wells, I know exactly where Clio's at. I lived in Dothan. I lived in Enterprise, and I know exactly where Clio's at. Lived in Daleville. Excuse me. The Warhawks, right there on Fort Rucker. Roanoke. There's a what about? There's a Roanoke what about. Imagine that. Wells, the HRR, the high-resolution radar, has not really got in there yet. That's about a 48-hour radar because it's to get that good resolution. So we're just now getting right on the edge of being able to use that particular radar in this event. And you're correct in asking that question, though, because that radar is hard to beat, but you got to be a little bit closer to the event before we can really see good. The one we're looking at is the GFS. So Roanoke, you're going to be right there on the northern edge of this if this model ends up verifying. That's a big, huge if right now. This is one of the more trusted models that we rely on in these type situations. So that's really the only thing we can go with right now. And with this, Roanoke, southern Randolph County is going to be right there on the northern fringes of how far north the moisture comes off of the Gulf of America. So I would not anticipate, if this is correct, a major snow event in Randolph County. It could be that Roanoke could end up with a dusting, and Wedowee could end up with zero, or maybe just flurries. The same thing over in Georgia. This could be a setup where LaGrange could get, a quarter of an inch, half inch, and then Franklin, you might just get a dusting or just flurries. If this model is correct, that cutoff line is going to be right there through northern Tallapoosa, southern Randolph, over to about Franklin and south, according to this particular model. Euro has not been our friend if you are a snow lover. Absolutely showing nothing. The Euro's been an outlier on the dry side. The GFS has been not really an outlier because there are a couple of other models that are kind of showing the same thing, but the GFS has been one of the more aggressive ones. The Euro, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it'll be interesting to see how that evolves as we get into tomorrow, too. If it starts picking up on something and the HRR starts giving us good resolution, then we can start honing in on exactly what's going to happen. Coweta County, you're going to be right there on the line, too, if this model is correct. How do you think I'm feeling sitting way up here in the northeast Georgia mountains? This is what's supposed to be happening up here, not down there. And this may be the second time in about a year that we've had a setup like this. I mean, you guys sitting down there along the I-10 corridor with, 13, 14 inches of snow on the ground, and we ain't had nothing up here in the northeast Georgia mountains. That is just backwards from the way it is supposed to be. Yeah, Montgomery, you're right there in that zone, too, where it could get interesting for you. I'll go back to midnight. You see, there's not much happening right there. And then right there at 3 a.m., we'll go back to midnight. You got a little snow falling in Prattville and Montgomery. Back over toward Wetumpka at midnight Saturday night. Then by 3 a.m., if this model is correct, it is shifted to just south of Montgomery. The northern edge of it by 3 a.m. would be the I-85 corridor. And then it would stretch to the south 30, 40 miles. And then as we go through time, it just continues marching southeast, which I'm a little bit leery of the motion that the GFS is painting here. And I'll tell you why. So there's 9 a.m. We'll back it out. We'll go back to 6. There's 3. There's midnight. And the reason I'm a little bit leery of that is if that low pressure system gets going out there in the, right along the Gulf Coast, and it moves to the east or starts curling to the northeast, it would seem logical to me that that moisture shield would kind of curve and back into Alabama as the low pressure system turns to the northeast. If you look at this closely, the model is not depicting that type of movement. That's more of what you would expect if we had a line of snow coming out of the northwest moving to the southeast. So, a little question mark there on whether this particular model has got this painted correctly. Roanoke is right there on the northern edge of where the snow shield may be. Not looking at anything crazy at the moment. If this model is correct, Roanoke could be at a dusting to a half inch, or it might just be flurries. Yeah, Brittany, I'm going to recap one more time before I wrap this up. And, of course, when we do these live updates, you give it about 5 minutes after we end, and then you can go back and watch the whole thing again. That's just the way Facebook and YouTube works. It will post there on my news feed on Facebook, and it'll be available over on YouTube as well. So you can go back and watch the whole thing if you wish. Brianna, I don't know. It's going to be hard to kind of answer that question right now. You're coming up here tomorrow. I'd check the absolute latest weather forecast before you come up here. You may get up tomorrow morning, this whole thing has changed. I mean, they may shift the whole thing north. You may be driving into snow. Well, it won't be snowing up here tomorrow, but the point is you could see some snow up here Saturday night if they were to shift everything north. Or they may shift it further south, or it may not happen at all. Those are all possibilities right now. So I would suggest to you to check the forecast in the morning before you make those kinds of decisions. And even after you get up here, you can continue to check the forecast and determine the best time for you to travel back, whether it be Saturday night or Sunday. If this happens, it's going to be an after midnight Saturday night into Sunday morning event. When it comes to snow forecasting, there really isn't a reliable model. I guess the GFS, and the Euro, either one of those models are decent. But I've seen them both dead wrong. I've seen them both exactly on spot. It's just hard to forecast snow in the southeastern United States. Models are not skewed in that direction. They don't understand how typical atmospheric conditions are different across the southeast versus the north. I mean, they can forecast snow in the, Colorado all day long, but it's just a different story in the south because guess what? It is not supposed to snow in the southeastern United States. So models really struggle with it, either GFS or Euro, either one. Right now, if you believe the Euro, you're not going to be happy if you're a snow lover because it's just not putting anything out there. Well, the last time I looked, it wasn't anyway. Angela, if I could bring these mountains with us, we might consider it. I do know James Spann. I taught him everything he knows. Be sure and tell him I said that next time you talk to him. That's a long-time joke between James and I. I do know him. I was the Randolph County, Alabama EMA director for 6 years. I was in broadcast radio in East Alabama, West Georgia for 22 years. I lived in Roanoke for 22 years and had many occasions and still talk to James from time to time in the chat room. So, yeah, I know him well. They don't come much better than James Spann, I can tell you. You guys pay really good attention, and I'm glad you do that. 3 coffee cups. Okay, so this one holds all of my pens and pencils and remotes and credit cards that I need to forget I have. So I stick them in this so I forget about them. All right, so that one's kind of right there for display. This one is down a little bit lower for display because it's a little easier to see than my pen cup that I've got up here on the console. And then I got the coffee in this one because it's insulated. And I got one of those newfangled coffee deals where you press the coffee and you make cappuccino and a latte and all that kind of stuff. Well, I just make it real strong. I like strong coffee. But I don't like cold coffee. Coffee's not supposed to be cold, people. Keep trying to tell my daughter that. She thinks I'm crazy. So I have to have hot coffee. So when I know I'm going to go live, I'm going to be live for a while, I put my coffee in my thermos cup here so it'll hold it. I vote for 70 and 80-degree temps myself. All right, folks, so we're going to wrap this up. Let me run through this one more quick time for you and kind of tell you what we think is going to happen right now. As I said at the top of this broadcast, let me preface what I'm about to say with this. There are three distinct possibilities on the table at the moment, and it ranges from absolutely nothing for anybody Saturday night to a snow event, maybe along and just north of I-85, beginning sometime around midnight or 1 a.m. Sunday morning, and then moving to the southeast, down into southeast Alabama, down into southern Georgia, and across northwest Florida. That's midnight. That's 3 a.m. That is 6 a.m. And that is 9 a.m. You can see as that band of snow works to the southeast, it gets a little bit wider and those colors get darker, meaning the snow rate continues to intensify as that system moves to the southeast. The other possibility is the low pressure system forms further north. We actually have three scenarios on the placement of the low. And the most likely scenarios where you see it there, that's going to be the I-85 snow area, maybe southern Randolph County and then all the way to Dothan. Further north you are, the less amount of snow you're going to see on the ground. And then the second scenario is that the low pressure forms further out in the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, whichever way you want to go with it, and that pulls that moisture shield further to the south. And in scenario number two, you folks up there around the I-85 corridor likely wouldn't see much more than flurries. There is a third scenario that's not depicted on this map here, and that is the low forms further north than anticipated, or forms right there in scenario one, but moves in more of a northeasterly direction. That would pull more moisture up across East Alabama, West Georgia, and eventually across Northeast Georgia. So that is a possibility. It's an outlying possibility at the moment. I like scenario one. That's what several models have latched on to. This far out, there is some consistency run to run, and that's what you look for. And so I like scenario one. I think from about southern Randolph all the way to the Gulf Coast is where the snow placement is going to be on this. And we're probably looking at anywhere from a dusting, maybe some localized areas down there in southeast Alabama, northwest Florida, across southern Georgia that could get up to around an inch and a half. You're going to see more snow down there if this verifies, but the problem is the ground's going to be relatively warm, so your accumulation totals are not going to be that high where we think we'll see the highest snow rates, if that makes sense. And then, by 9 or 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, it's all gone. I don't anticipate major travel issues across East Alabama or West Georgia. I mean, there could be a couple of hours there, maybe around sunrise on Sunday morning, where we could have some issues, at least while it's snowing, on bridges and overpasses across East Alabama and West Georgia. But as soon as the snow stops, the clouds are going to go away pretty quick, and we'll have the sun come out. We'll start having that radiational heating, whether it's, it's going to still be cold, but you get that sun, even though you're at 32 or below, that radiational heating on that snow will make that snow evaporate real quick. And there should be some wind behind all of this as well, which will help dry the roads up also. So that's where we see it right now. Again, if you just joined us and you missed the recap, go back in about 5 minutes. You can watch this whole thing again. I do plan on being here in the morning. We'll either do a prime time. We probably will do a prime time live in the morning. around 6 a.m. tomorrow morning with the latest information. And then throughout the day tomorrow, as we get more information from the Weather Service as they update the forecast, I'll either post or go live to give you the latest information. And if it still looks good for a decent snow across East Alabama or West Georgia by this time or by tomorrow night, we'll do another Weather Talk Live around 8 o'clock Central tomorrow night. So thanks for joining us, and I'll see you back in here early tomorrow morning with the latest information on the possibility of some snow across East Alabama and West Georgia.